Welcome, folks. Eric Guy here, Center for Victory. We're still going strong here at CFV. We're doing a lot online, doing a lot via web, via phone call, via webinars. But today we have Ms. Christie Cawley here, navigating midlife career change. We had this already scheduled to do before we knew everything that was going on with the coronavirus, and we decided, hey, this is probably pretty timely. Let's go ahead and do it, and probably it'll continue to blossom into something else. But with that, I'll hand it over to Christie. Christie and I have worked together for years now. Mm-hmm. She's a senior partner on the team, has a lot of great advice to offer us about this topic today. So Christie, it's all yours. And then we will have questions at the end. And just so you know, this will be video recorded, so you can go and grab it off our YouTube channel. If you want to, while you're there, go ahead and subscribe, because then you'll get notifications on when things come out. And also, before I forget, Christie and I are also be doing another webinar tomorrow.
Right.
Is that at 12?
2
tomorrow as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that is just self-regulation through this time, some tips and tricks for us folks that are finding this challenging times ahead of us. So Christie, all yours. Thanks for doing this, really appreciate it. I'll shut up now.
Okay, well, thanks for the intro, and again, thanks to all of you for joining us. This is a topic near and dear to my heart. I know I'm on my third chapter of my career through my midlife, and so I have to say, been there, done it, doing it again. I think as we look at our careers as part of our life plan, it's an important topic to take stock of and take note of at a variety of different points in our life. So I've skinnied down a lot of information for you. I've been an outplacement and executive coach for a long time, quite a number of years. And there's a lot of detail and depth behind the tips that I'm recommending. So I've just organized it kind of in a broader picture way. But as we get to the end of the webinar, there's plenty of time set up for questions and answers. And if you want to get into a little bit more depth of information, I'm more than happy to do that with you. As we typically provide this topic and this advisement and coaching, it happens throughout every year at different times. And right now is really an interesting time for this topic to come together. So I'm just going to kind of guide us through this by thinking and looking at this midlife career change as something that you might arrive in doing because of a couple of different reasons. So you might be proactively considering this change because it's just time. You're feeling a little stale or feeling the need to do a little bit more with your profession. You're feeling like you've done the preparation work, and now it's your time to kind of shine at a greater level of responsibility or authority, or it's time to change. And that change might come around because you're actively seeking the next chapter in your life. You might be responding to a change in your life that requires you to take a look at your professional career and all that it is. And you may have actually been transitioned out of your job or your career. So kind of not by choice, but by circumstances. However you've arrived at the journey today, we've got some good information for you. Some of it you might find has a little bit more weighting or priority right now, given where you are. And the nice thing about the tips that I'm providing, they're kind of interchangeable. You don't have to go in a succinct order, which is good for me with my PI, and I'll share that with you at the end of this. So just keeping in mind, a lot of times those of us at midlife right now might be older millennials, so in our 40s. We might be Gen Xers, which is me, in our 50s, possibly early 60s, and baby boomers. Typically, those are the generations that are kind of where I would qualify a midlife career change versus starting out in our careers. The good thing is you're not alone. You're probably not the first person who's going to navigate a career change, okay? Not necessarily just a change in jobs, but I'm really talking about career changing, Okay. And due to the Bureau of Statistics, the average person tends to have about 11 jobs over the course of their career. I mean, many of us might work 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And so with that, we evolve, we change, we grow, we become the dynamic people we are today. And why would our careers kind of be kept behind? So it's part of our lives and part of the fun. So with that in mind, I've put together 5 success tips. Okay, there's lots of recommendations, lots of advice that's out there. But I think in really keeping it real, it's about being clear about what you want to do versus what you can do. So in my experience, when we arrive at this midlife juncture or crossroads of consideration, remember, you've developed a lot at this point in time. So there's a lot that you can do. You might not necessarily be as tuned in to what you want to do. So just let that sit for a second. So part of this journey in being successful in really creating this change that resonates for you is to make sure that you have some self-awareness. Okay, really think about what you want to do versus just all the things you can do. You probably can do a lot. Number 2, dedicate the time to designing your plan. If I were to kind of put a gold star next to one of these, and I might for the next PowerPoint, I would star this number 2. I think most people rush through this phase of work, and this is the most critical phase of your personal work, is dedicating the time to designing your plan. And it needs to be for you. Okay. Number 3, be vulnerable. Asking for help is probably one of the most important asks you will ever make on behalf of yourself. It's a value proposition. You have a lot to offer. Invite people to help. Invite people to help refer you and connect you with opportunities that'll help you develop and elevate personally and professionally. That's kind of the goal of our organization. So that's a good tip to give. Define your goals. Be clear about what you're really looking for. And that's going to come with some time and consideration. And then number 5, channel what I call the 3 Ps. Be prepared, be patient, and be positive. So what I've done is put together a couple pieces of information for you, some practical next step tips, some information and some resources that might help you navigate these 5 tips and enacting them with your career transition plan. So I'll start now at number 1, be clear about what you want to do versus what you can do. This is not going to be something that you're going to be able to answer in 2 minutes with a tablet in front of you, scratching it out or typing it in. Midlife career transitions aren't really about reinvention. And this is my own personal opinion. So again, there's a lot of people on the phone right now on the call that are a lot smarter than I am. And you can certainly comment at the end. But when I'm talking about a midlife transition, it's not about reinvention. It's about recycling and repurposing your skills and interests in new ways, okay? Not basically becoming a different person, but becoming a better version of you and your work. This is something I think in midlife, and I think Eric, just last week, we did this on like the midlife reset, a topic that we did together. Sometimes you might be feeling this need to reinvent, and that might be tied to alignment or misalignment in your own personal and professional life. If you're feeling like you need to kind of reinvent yourself, you might want to take a pause on the career navigation topic and really kind of do some work inside here and here, okay? And then you might have more clarity in pursuing a career change. So really explore that dynamic before putting all your energy into kind of this plan for career navigation. Make sure you understand your starting point. I think an important piece of this is developing self-awareness. Now, there's lots of different ways of doing that. Some people journal. There's a lot of books available on this, podcasts, TED Talks, you name it. There's a lot of information out there. Not all the information is good, but there is some information that's highly reliable. And so I'm going to give you my go-to favorites, okay? I want to make sure that you have a chance of understanding kind of what's going on in your head, your heart, and how you utilize the skills and capabilities of your hands, right? Of what you do and how you do it. So take the predictive index assessment. Some of you are PI clients, so hello, good to have you. Those of you who are not, you can take that assessment directly here. This link will be provided for you. You can go onto our website on centerforvictory.com and you can access some of these tools directly there, and that's absolutely fine. I also like Strength Finders. That's another tool that is out on the market. I don't like to use it in isolation, but I like to use it as a complement to some findings that I think are really value added that will come out of the predictive index assessment. So take the assessment, get your report, read through it, and coming out of that, take a look at some of the management strategies, influencing strategies, and some areas of your strengths and some cautions.
Yeah, Christie, if I could just stop you real quick. You know,
Yeah.
one of the things that I like here that you and I went back and forth on and had several discussions on was all three of these: the predictive index, the values, and the attribute index.
Yes.
And really that attribute index is really, you know, getting yourself aligned. I like to say the race car and the race car driver. We all have great race cars. It's just the driver needs to get into some better, you know, physical shape or whatever that means to you, right? So in alignment with who that car is, and to your point, Christie, it might not be, you know, a full, hey, look, I have to change everything about me, because I think that's where people rush. It's just, I just have to get in alignment with where I want to go right now,
right,
so that the car runs well.
Yeah. Yeah, great. That's a great point to make, so thank you. So utilize some of these resources and tips. You know, we all have blind spots. And a lot of times we have spent at this point in our careers doing a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of heavy work focused on trying to shoulder or mitigate some of the areas that just aren't natural for us. And we might be feeling a little exhausted from it. So with that exhaustion and that heavy work, that might be where our primary focus has been. We may have lost sight of where some of our natural tendencies and strengths reside. And it's really important as you're calibrating and looking at what you really want to do, that you are really disciplined in planning for how you can best thrive in the new opportunity that you're seeking. So really use these tools, take the time, and you know, take inspiration from getting back in touch with yourself, okay? Number two, or B, step B in this, consider your current career. Why are you feeling the need to change? Now, this might be kind of arriving at this journey by design, right? You've decided this is something you want to pursue, or you're feeling that because of your life circumstances, you need to get ready for a next chapter, okay? You can also do the same exercise if you kind of ended up here, not by choice. Why do you feel the need to change? And what was the catalyst? Are you reacting to a change or creating a need in employment? And really give some thought to, are some of the reasons for this based on interpersonal dynamics? And I bring this to your attention because sometimes, for example, what leads us to thinking about leaving an organization or leaving our current role are really poor relationships with colleagues or coworkers and managers, not feeling like you have a fit with the organizational culture, okay? And that might be your team, it might be your department, your division, whatever it might be. You might feel that your personal contributions are not valued by the company, or that there's ineffective leadership, right? And you may very well have some of these very same experiences even after you make a change. So what I'd really like to do is give you a coaching tip on this. Do some work and figure out if there's something you can do now to address or change this dynamic that would allow you to be maybe in a different place in another couple of weeks. Is there a courageous conversation that you need to have? Is there some dynamic or some issue that really needs to be negotiated or navigated? You'll be in a better position, maybe feeling or having that experience to then look at what different opportunities might be. Because people are people are people, and people are messy. And so I would really caution you to really think about why you're looking to leave, and make sure you're aware of that. And then C, I've put together these questions, and a lot of these come from really great resource that I've tapped into before. And I'll share the link with you guys afterwards. But if you can answer, feel that you're experiencing the following on a regular basis, really feeling run down and worn out from your work, your home, and on the weekend or vacations, like you feel like you're back to normal. It's really that work frame that you have each week that's just depleting you. Is your current work situation not what you want to do for the rest of your life? So when you find yourself thinking about your work, you just see yourself doing something very different. Money's no longer compensating you for kind of the work that you have to perform. There's a disconnect there. You're feeling like you've made all the right choices so far, but it just feels like it's a misfit, right? And if you feel that your abilities and talents could be used in a more impactful way, maybe doing similar work, but for a different purpose. That might be something that's a call for, hey, it's time to really think about the next phase of your career. I mean, I went from retail, merchandising, logistics, human resources, to nonprofit leadership. And now in this chapter, 7 years in, doing consulting and working with lots of different companies in lots of different ways. And it's blending all of what I really enjoyed about those first 2 chapters. A lot of people were like, what do you mean you're going into nonprofit? You're a retailer. What do you mean you're doing consulting? You ran a nonprofit. Why would you be doing human resources again? So a lot of people won't understand this is your journey. It's not somebody else's. So just take inspiration from that. You can make a very successful transition. Switching to number 2, the second tip that I have is really, again, slow it down. Dedicate time to designing your plan and not just the search activity. I find this all the time with so many of my coaching clients. Our first discussion, they're like, okay, I've called this person, I've reached out, I've submitted my resume to this posting, and this posting. Okay, what are you looking to do? When you're calling these people to have them help you, what are you telling them that you want to do? You really need to design your plan so it can be more authentic and also more effective when it's time to really activate it. So slow down that urge to hurry up. Try to keep yourself centered and focused on you and not other people, right? Resist that comparison. Life is not Instagram. And I bet you a lot of those people are miserable too. So make sure it's a thoughtful plan for you. Determine if you're willing or able to move. That may have a profound impact on how you design your plan. Okay, do you have upcoming elder care responsibilities for older relatives that maybe right now everything is fine, but in another couple of years, those responsibilities may come into the forefront? It's something to consider as you're thinking about career navigation at this time in your life. Really take the time to discover what you want and then how to get it. Consider networking and what connections you might have. Do you have those connections, or have you been a little bit more invested in just your work life or your family life, and maybe you haven't really explored those connections and relationships? You're going to need those to bolster your opportunity to navigate successfully. A great tip is to really look at your finances and consider your options. What kind of window do you have? What time frame are you going to give yourself? That's especially important if you are finding yourself on this path, not by choice. How much time can I really give to a career navigation or career transition? You might need to secure a job, to just have a job and stabilize your finances as you develop your plan for a career down the point. There's nothing wrong with that, and that might be your best strategy in the short run. And then make sure that you're approaching this with insight on what are some of the current recruiting techniques, what is the market like, How are companies using social media? What are ATS or applicant tracking systems, and how do they work with algorithms and word match? You need to get knowledgeable on current contemporary practices, so when you activate your search, you're speaking the right language. Okay, so that's tip number 2. Part of this in designing your plan, so here's some go-to tips for you on this. Do your homework and your research about the projected market and the translatability, I don't even know if that's a word, of kind of what you've done to what you would want to do. And see if there's a common thread there. It doesn't have to be the same, but you have to see that there's a translation for the experience that you've had to the opportunities you're seeking. Really be kind of check in and assess your timing and whether you're developing a short-term solution to implement a longer-term plan. Factor in if retirement is on the horizon, in the next 10 years. If so, you might make some different decisions. And develop a plan that's well-informed. Really do your homework, do some investigation, use the resources that are available to you. I've listed here a couple podcasts that I really recommend often for career changers. Pivot, Career Tool, actually Classy Career Girl podcast. I know it sounds ridiculous. They have some great content on it. And then how did you get into that? Really think about and look at people who are doing something interesting to make a living and see if you find something there that resonates with you. So give yourself permission to really design a plan that's best for you. The third tip is to be vulnerable with confidence, okay? And it's a fine balance. And some of us are better at doing this than others. And if you're navigating a career change, you might find at different phases of that search, you might be more confident or might be feeling more vulnerable. So kind of take stock of where you are in here and in here, and really focus on promoting your strengths and take pride in your abilities. Focus on your transferable skills, your experiences, and your willingness to learn, right? You don't know it all. You're always in a state of learning and evolving. And I think that's important to articulate in your brand that you're developing. Remember, you're not bringing the past experience that you had, you're bringing your capacity to add value to your new employer or your new role. Really focus on what that looks like. Be confident, and just remember, if you have an issue with your age or how long you've been doing this, the interviewer or your prospective company will too. It's about your own level of comfort with yourself, okay? That is huge. That's a huge piece of interviewing. Interviewing is storytelling. We'll do another podcast on that. Involve your family. That's important under this being vulnerable. If it's a midlife career change, odds are at this stage of your life, your career choice is going to have a much bigger impact beyond just you. So it's important that you use that information as insights to formulate your plan and prioritize your needs. I like identifying your change team, introduce your plan and gain input from trusted advisors, have them kind of function as your go-to group for practicing interview, practicing talking about your interests, practice talking about a topic that's tough for you. They're your folks. They're going to be doing endorsements on your LinkedIn profile. They're going to be willing to place you in touch with contacts. So figure out who your change team is. It doesn't have to be a lot of people. It shouldn't. It's kind of a few trusted advisors. And then again, kind of going back to looking at, the how-to. Midlife, typically, successful career transition is largely going to be based on points of connection that you have with new opportunities. And that comes from networking. It comes from utilizing the points of connection that you have, common points of interest. You might join your Chamber of Commerce. You might go to or join an association for your specialty, your profession. Attend speaker series and meet other people who are interested in those topics like you are. Those are really important ways of building and expanding your network as you're looking to activate your plan. And there's a lot of GoTo meetups virtually. In the state of things right now, going to meetings personally and handshaking may be a thing of the past. So I would tell you that LinkedIn has some really great options, and we can talk more about that in the Q&A. So be vulnerable and let people know you're interested in exploring opportunities, and this might even be in your current organization. Okay, I'm interested in getting into project management. I'd be interested in getting into recruiting or marketing. How would my role translate to that? I'd like to be able to have a little bit more exposure to finance planning. Whatever your interests are, you might explore it in your current employer environment or be looking elsewhere. Number 4, if you're following along with me, and again, I will stop talking in a few minutes, define your goals and creating your goals. I think this is so important. I've actually given you the template that I use with a lot of my clients. And here is my number 1 direction. I'm going to tell you what to do in this case, not just advise you or make suggestions. Be selfish with this time. Be selfish with developing your plan. Be selfish with thinking about what you want to do. No one is judging. This is your plan, and be clear about how you would qualify what you need to have in place if you're to make a change. And what you need to have might be a specific compensation package or level, certain type of benefit or benefit access, depending on maybe some conditions that you have or needs that you have. Level of responsibility, number of direct reports or no direct reports, right? What do you absolutely have to have as a baseline to even consider making a change? That's column 1. Column 2, this is what I'm really wishing for. I wish I could have this, or I'd have this exposure, or I would have this aspect to my profession. I wish I had a shorter commute. I wish I could work from home. I wish I could work remotely. I wish I had an office to go to. Whatever's important to you, put it on that wish list. And then really qualify what would be amazing if I made a change. What would I feel like, oh my gosh, I just won the career lottery. It's all of this. It's everything on my wish list and the 3 things, okay, or 4 things, 5 things. It doesn't matter to me. Whatever's important to you is the point. But really look at the whole you when defining these. It's not just the comp. It's not just the benefits. It's not just the title. It's how this helps you with your overall life plan. So really think about your all of your goals, not just your career goals when you're really putting this chart together. I prefer kind of writing it out. You might have some other tools or practices that you use, but I think that that's really important for you. And then this becomes your guideline when you have hopefully a few opportunities to consider. You can take a look at what those opportunities are and say, hey, does this really meet most of what I have on my wish list and my amazing list? Or is this just checking off what I basically need? And if that is, it might just be a job change and not really enhancing or elevating your career. So just think about that. And then number 5, in wrapping up, channel the 3 Ps. And you can use this for a lot of different things that you're working on right now. But I think number 1, be prepared. It is worth the time. You are worth the investment of time and contemplation. This is your life. For some of us, we might be on the planet another 30 years, another 40 years, working or interacting or having purpose in our lives. What are you going to do with that time? So be prepared. Practice your pitch and your interview style. Promote your capabilities, not just your achievements. Okay, there's a difference there. Do your homework on the company and the interviewers. Remember, you're interviewing them as well. Are they measuring up to your standards? Okay, and go back to that chart you developed. Be positive. You have to be, right? You have to be. This is an opportunity for you. You're your own best promoter or enemy. Practice affirmations. This can, this can wear on you sometimes. You will get some no's. You will get some lack of responses. You will get some people who say they'll connect you to someone and then they don't, and you can really fall prey to kind of getting down about it. So develop some affirmations and really rely on your change team to kind of bolster your perspective. And be patient. Typically, and this is just from my own experience, and also this is what tends to be kind of out on the market right now, at a manager level, a career change might take anywhere from 1 to 3 months. You might get the initial interviews right away, and then there'll be some lag time. That's kind of the way it works. Sometimes you'll be surprised by it, but about 1 to 3 months is a reasonable time frame to think about a career transition. If you're more on that more senior manager, director level, even a VP level, it might be 3 to 6 months. And then typically for executive and other leaders within organizations, it could be 3 to 12 months. And it also depends on how limited and accessible the opportunities that you're seeking are in your market or in the market that you're looking to move to. So there's a lot of qualifiers in that timeline, but set realistic milestones of kind of planning and developing your way through this. And my suggestion to you is to reevaluate your strategies every 3 to 6 months, every 3 to 6 weeks, and course correct when needed. So those are, again, Christie's brain dump. 5, I think, really tried and true tips to kind of orient and setting yourself up for a successful career navigation. Hopefully there's some new thinking that came out of some of those tips, and you might be thinking about, what did I learn and how can I use it this week? Maybe it's a reminder or a little bolster of where you want to refocus your attention. Or it can serve in just overwhelming you with what you're trying to handle right now. And that's natural and that's normal. Just take some of these tips to help to calibrate and set yourself up for a successful planning session going into next week. So those are some of the thoughts I had that I wanted to share with you. And at this point, I am wide open for just some questions and some thoughts that any of our viewers might have.
Christie, a question here. What does stale feel like? You mentioned that earlier, I think, and maybe that's where that question is coming from.
Yeah.
I think you answered it, but can you go back over that? I know a lot of people, we just feel like kind of we're floundering sometimes, and maybe that's for other reasons, and without answering, I'll let you answer. But what does stale feel like?
Sure. So I'll kind of direct you to the screen right now. This is my PI pattern, right? So this kind of affects about 40% of kind of how I operate. So for me, feeling stale feels like I'm slowed down. I don't have opportunities to create and change things and kind of put energy into the work that I'm doing. Maybe I'm bored, right? I don't have enough things going on. For someone else, that sensation might come about from they're really so practiced in their work, and really they love being able to bring things to completion, but they're ready for more. They're ready for more challenges, or maybe an expansion in their range of responsibilities. And maybe because they're so good at their specialty in their current role, no one lets them, right? There isn't permission to kind of get involved in this area, or maybe hone some skills in this other area, and you're just feeling a little stuck. I think when I use the word stale, it's akin to stuck. I feel a little trapped. For whomever asked that question, I hope that's helpful to you. Some people describe it as being bored, right? I don't have the energy. Like, I don't really look forward to starting my day. I look really forward to ending my day. That might be some framework for you to think about. And we all have off days, and we can have off weeks. And right now, I would say I think realistically it qualifies as we're all having like an off year right now. So I think it's like a little nuts. So that sensation might be a little different, but tune into yourself. If you're feeling like that over a longer period of time and it's now a pattern and you've tried some different things to maybe adjust or adapt and you're still kind of having that feeling, it's probably time to think about what's next.
Yeah, I talked to a gentleman a couple weeks ago before all this happened, and we were just having some coffee, and this particular gentleman has a high-paying job downtown, and he's just really looking to make a transition. But one of the things that he said, he's like, I've tried to find things that challenge me internally, but I don't feel like I'm giving 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm willing to take a pay cut to be purposeful. He's like, and I kept asking him different questions over and over and again. And that, I mean, I would classify that as stale, but he has to, to him at the end of that discussion, he has to go and do something that gives him purpose,
Mm-hmm.
not the paycheck. And that's what he was really looking for. And every other thing that he had applied to that point was much lower on the pay scale. But as he talked about it, you could tell the ones he was very interested in that sounded like he had dug in, did some research, and were going to be very purposeful for him if he were to accept some of those.
Yeah, and Eric, I think that's it brings up probably, maybe I don't know this person, so I wouldn't assume to know what their circumstances are, but really going back to thinking about kind of your life plan. And when we're talking about midlife career changes, there's a lot that goes into this. This isn't just a different job. This isn't just a different title, right? This is, I'm feeling the need to make a change because I want that facet of my life to function differently, right? Mm-hmm. So sometimes that need for purpose, sometimes we have a more narrow, more of a singular faceted life that we might be existing in at that point in time, where all our energy is just going into our work and going home and doing whatever we do at home, but we're not really exerting kind of how we're thinking about things and our exposure to things. And sometimes if it's really a purpose that someone is seeking, it may even be getting more involved in a volunteer capacity, serving on a board and looking at the finances or the strategies or things there. And the job becomes less of a need to have all of that encompassed because I'm getting it in my life. So especially if you're looking at making a considerable change in compensation, remember, once you do that, it's really hard to kind of get back to where you were. So unless you really have that as you're looking to do a partial retirement or scaling back, I would caution anyone thinking that a job that just has purpose is going to be you're going to have less salary. Unless you're really changing careers and saying, you know what, at this point in time, I really want to be an EMT. I've spent my life as a teacher. I've spent my life as an HR executive or whatever. And I'm just really feeling this calling, and I really want to be an EMT before I retire someday. I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to get that training. I'm going to make a plan to do that. And I know the compensation is going to be very different than I have right now. And that's part of my plan. I've made a plan for my life to accommodate or build that in. So I think that that's where I would just give some advice to people on that kind of thoughtfulness.
Yeah, and one of the things that I wrote down that it's worth repeating again, because I just heard you say it again. It's not just changing jobs, but a career. I mean, what's what you're looking for? Some people just get stale in a job for other reasons, and they don't take into account, hey, look, what can I bring to the equation? Is it something inside the current company that I have that I could move to? Like, it just, we really spend the time and think about it. And talk about it. I mean, you mentioned that point earlier, and I know we've had lots and lots of these discussions over the years about, hey, what's the best fit? What should we be doing? This and that. And a lot of people have that, but they just don't have the outlet for it. And that's why things like what we're doing today, especially in light of what's going to be happening the next couple months, is so important.
Yeah.
Again, we didn't think about this when we weren't thinking about this when we had this plan, but it's very front of mind for a lot of people. Nowadays, I know we've just been bombarded with calls and things like that of, okay, what am I going to do next? There's some fear there. Don't let fear drive that decision. Take some time right now while we're all at home to really plan. What do I want? What's that next step?
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like for me? And do some soul searching while you have the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And reach out to us at Center for Victory. I mean, we're here to help. This is kind of what we do. We've all gone through these changes ourselves. We work with clients all the time that are going through changes. I know I've even made points of introduction and connection for people who might be interested in kind of finding out more about how a role might work at another company. So I think that consider us part of your network and part of your community. And in the current state of things, there's a lot of hiring that's going on, and there's a lot of freezing that's going on. So I would say right now it's hard to gauge what normal looks like. So I would say use this time to really design a plan for you. After all of this craziness, what do you really see yourself wanting to do, and building a plan towards that goal? If you find that because of the corona chaos that is in place right now, that you find yourself without work, luckily there's a lot of safety net options to check into with the new act and regulations that were just passed. But with that in mind, you might just need to take a job, and that's okay. It's okay if you need to take a job to just stabilize things and kind of bring the fear level down and bring the worry down for you and your family. That's absolutely fine. You'll bounce back from that. And I don't think coming out of this year, anyone looking at your resume next year would call that into question. So that's my best advice on that. Be confident. Good. Yeah.
Very good. Any other questions?
I have a question for you, Christie.
Sure.
I'm going to be 70 this year. And
yes,
I have
congratulations.
Thank you. And I have an activity that is going to be winding down in about 3 years, and according to plan. And one of the things that I wanted to ask is, over the years, I've had a well-accomplished resume, if you will, and I just wondered, is it better to present the resume and get that in circulation at that time when you get closer to the date, or is it better to go out and use your network and, shake some hands, if you will, and just go out and meet the people to discover opportunities? Which one of those two approaches do you think would work best in my situation?
In your situation, I would highly recommend that you utilize your network. I think your greatest opportunity, and statistically, when we look at outplacement for people, typically at this level or with the experience that you've had, 80%, 90% opportunities are going to come about by somebody who knows you. And so I would highly suggest that if you have a bit of a 3-year time frame until that kind of winds down, about 18 months before the wind down date, I would start kind of getting out there. And I wouldn't use a resume, Michael. I would really use a bio that basically says, here's what I'm looking to do, here's the capacity, and here's the type of projects or work or opportunities that I'm seeking.
Okay, good advice. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I would really get savvy with LinkedIn.
Yeah, I've been on LinkedIn, and I get a lot of requests for services because of that. But,
yeah, so really bolster. I think it's really important to remember in midlife to kind of looking at opportunities as we get to more of that typical retirement age. There's a lot of people who are reaching out to, folks like me saying, okay, I did the retirement thing. I've spent about 6 months doing this. It was a nice break, and now I'm ready to lose my mind. Like, I need to go back to doing something. I need something more, and they want a multifaceted life. And a lot of times our work provides that opportunity to us. So I think really recognizing you have a brand.
Yeah.
And so really working, and we can do another session on this, Eric. I really believe in this. You are your own brand. And so your career is one aspect of who you are. And so you really want to look at how you're positioning yourself in a marketing capacity to move forward. I know I have some folks on the phone who I've worked with personally, but I think really establishing who you are and what you bring to opportunities, whether on a project basis, consultant or employee, is really important. And LinkedIn right now is the primary avenue for that type of introduction and interface.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Great.
sure. Good luck to you. And let me know if you need any phased retirement coaching.
All righty, I will do that.
Hey, are you really 70?
Well, I will be in September, yes.
Oh my goodness, man.
Congratulations.
You look like you're closer to 50, Mike.
Yeah, right. I hear you.
Yeah, and I want to, I made light of that, but I see a lot of companies, Christie, you see a lot of companies, obviously, and I know some of our other consultants are on here too, but there's a lot of work for people that, you think 65, 70, that might be retirement. That's kind of young nowadays. I mean, we see executives well into their 70s, even in their 80s. I mean, I have several companies that are being run and run well by folks in their 80s, and they're beating everybody in. I know a couple years ago I pulled in to a company to do some training, and their CEO he was getting out of the car at 7:00 that morning before I was, and he was 86. And he gets up, he's there every morning, but he gives so much attention to the building and the growth of that company. There's a lot of people out there that should be looking for people that have experience. So if, just that kind of that old thought that, well, the older I get, I'm not marketable. I don't believe that at all anymore. If you're doing good stuff, and to your point, Christie, if you can market yourself well, there's definitely a spot for you.
And I believe our president is 77, isn't he? So, and the new contestants coming against him are in that same age bracket.
Yeah. But you really can't hone experience without having experience. So, some of these positions are very complex. Some of these opportunities, leading even on an interim basis, there's a lot of complexities, and it's hard to amass the knowledge without the seasoning. And so own it, and be very proud of that. As long as you're presenting that capability as part of a continuum of continued learning. I think that's where some people with more experience shortchange themselves in their search and their interviews. They're trying to overcompensate for their age or how long they've been working. And it can come across as, yeah, I got this, I know all about it. And that can be very off-putting to people interviewing and looking to have you be part of a team. So just kind of, again, with your branding, just watch how you're presenting yourself.
Okay, sure, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Are there any other questions?
Okay. Well, just as a reminder, we'll be back on here tomorrow at 2:00. If you haven't signed up for that, that's self-regulation under stress. We're going to be pulling out some PI tactics too that Christie's going to share. We're going to stay on that call if anybody has questions for any reason whatsoever, but be sure to tune in for that. I would ask a favor that if you are on that call for tomorrow and you have signed up, if you want to get your questions in early, I know we already have over 70 signed up for that webinar for tomorrow. So get your questions in and we'll prioritize those as they come in. But thanks for watching. This will be recorded. This should be up on our YouTube channel by tomorrow at this time. If you have any questions, other questions, or want more information, just get a hold of us at centerforvictory.com. And with that, have a great rest of your day. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye. Thanks.